Frank, your Hebrew is outstanding, and I thank you for your warm introduction. I would also like to thank the Vice President of Tel Aviv University, Professor Anan Ryan. But first of all, I'd like to thank you, Amos, for your years of service in the Air Force and in the Intelligence Corps. We worked together. I know the Yadlin family. There is a proud father here, and a son who is proud of his father. Hello, Aaron. And I will reveal to you that Amos's daughter, Rotem, works in the Prime Minister's office. We are connected to 3 generations of Yadlins here. And I would also like to greet some of my old friends here. I see Fred Moses here. We've known each other for many years. Jeff Silverman, Yisrael Rosman. I would like to greet all the heads of the economic systems and academia who deal with issues of our national security. And I'd like to greet you all, distinguished audience. I'd like to talk about peace, but before that, I would like to say something to our host, Brigadier General in the Reserves, Amos Yadlin, about extending a hand in peace. It seems that extending a hand in peace is not always reciprocated, and I say this not only metaphorically. Look at the Israeli mountain climber. He didn't think twice when he extended his hand to his Turkish colleague and saved him from certain death just a few days ago. I'm sorry to say that the strong and natural desire on the part of our people to extend a hand in peace is not always met by the governments in our region. Just last night, we heard about the Turkish intentions to issue arrest warrants for Israeli officers, including you, who is standing at the head of this conference, and the former Chief of Staff, Gabi Ashkenazi. I would like to say in no uncertain terms to the soldiers and commanders of the IDF, the State of Israel will always stand at your side wherever you are and in every situation. You guarded us, and we will safeguard you. That is an important rule, and I know that all the citizens of the State of Israel support this. And I would like to talk about the aims of peace and the way to achieve it, and above all about the terms and conditions that are needed for it to exist. But I need a glass of water first, if I may. Can somebody arrange that? Can somebody get me a glass of water, please? A peace settlement between us and the Palestinians is needed first and foremost in order to prevent a binational state. First of all, in order to live in peace. Peace is better than any other situation, but also in order to prevent a binational state and in order to strengthen the future of the State of Israel as a Jewish and democratic state. We do not want to rule over the Palestinians, and we do not want the Palestinians as citizens of the State of Israel. And therefore, I have declared 3 times in the Bar Ilan speech, in the Knesset, and afterwards in my speech before the Congress, I declared that I support and advance peace between 2 nation states, a Palestinian, demilitarized Palestinian state that will recognize the Jewish state, the national home of the Jewish people, Israel. And I believe that there is very broad support among the nation for that kind of peace agreement that is based upon mutual respect and security for Israel. And with security, I mean real security arrangements on the ground that address the constant threats and the new threats that will be added. And I will note them. I believe that the unity government headed by myself expresses this broad consensus, and I call once again on Abu Mazen not to miss this unique opportunity and to give a chance to peace. I would like to make it clear, I am not setting any preconditions for entering into negotiations. Of course, there will be conditions for the conclusion of the negotiations, as will Abu Mazen. That's natural. That's why you hold negotiations. But that's why I'm saying to Abu Mazen, do not miss the opportunity to extend your hand in peace. If I were to say it in English for the sake of our guests, I would say, and this is a real chance. Chances are not always repeated in history or in political history, but it exists now. And negotiations for peace need two sides. One side is there. The peace between us and the Palestinian Authority is a clear interest of both sides. But we must state with open eyes that there are things that peace with Palestinians will not necessarily provide. Contrary to the prevalent view, peace between us and the Palestinians will not secure regional peace. Huge historical forces are acting in the region against regional peace, and they will continue to shock this neighborhood. They are constantly striving to destroy the state of Israel, and they seek to undermine all our peace agreements, those we have already signed and those we hope to sign in the future. These extreme forces are motivated by religious fundamentalism and a fundamental opposition to the West, of which Israel is the quintessential representative. To this day, we have successfully overcome these forces and other forces which have opposed our existence, and we have done this by preserving our qualitative edge. Today, we are facing new challenges which require us to find new ways to preserve this edge. In order to maintain peace in a state of confrontation, we need a balance of power or surplus power. In our case, in the face of the religious fanaticism, we need that surplus power. We must have an edge in the areas that I will denote. 4 threats face the state of Israel today and threaten it and peace. We are prepared to address all of them. They are the nuclear threat, missile threat, the cyber threat, and the huge arms that have been stockpiled in our region. And there is a 5th threat that I will speak about in a moment. Regarding the nuclear threat, I would like to relate to the talks between the superpowers and Iran. Not only should the sanctions be intensified, the demands of Iran, why the sanctions are being imposed, should also be intensified, and make that completely clear to Iran. Iran must stop all the enrichment of nuclear material. It must remove from its territory all the enriched material so far, and it must dismantle its underground nuclear facility in Qom. Only an explicit commitment on the part of Iran in the negotiations to realize all of these 3 demands and an explicit confirmation that this has been done can stop the Iranian nuclear program. And this must be the goal of the negotiations. But I say, sadly, that this is not what is being required of Iran today. We are now following a number of rounds of talks in which the Iranians have been required to stop the low-grade enrichment of nuclear resin, that is of 3.5%. Even though that is a low number, that is a very large proportion of the required enrichment needed to prepare fissionable material for a bomb. Not only have the Iranians refused, they continued to enrich undisturbed and raised the level to 5% and even higher. In other words, they are moving ahead constantly with their nuclear program to produce a nuclear bomb. It would be expected that the superpowers would require Iran to stop all enrichment in light of their serial refusal to do so in the past. But instead of that, the demands are being lessened. In the previous round, they were asked to stop the 3.5% enrichment, and that's not what's happening now. In this round, there is no insistence even that Iran stop all enrichment. On the one hand, it is good when they impose sanctions, heavy economic sanctions on Iran. That is a good thing. It is an important thing. And I say with satisfaction that this pressure is being applied to them. But on the other hand, these sanctions must be accompanied by the demands that I have enumerated, the combination of which will stop the Iranian nuclear program. It is very possible that the Iranians will temporarily stop the 20% enrichment, but that's not enough. The true test will be if the Iranians stop all of the enrichment and remove all the enriched material and dismantle the underground nuclear facility at Qom. That is the true test. And without that, there is nothing. As for the missile threat, from the moment our enemies realize that they cannot defeat us on the battleground, they turn to missiles and rockets, which they aim at our towns and villages. There is no country that is more threatened by missiles than Israel, and there's no other country that has advanced in missile defense than Israel. We are involved in both types of advance. First of all, active defense. We have invested in Iron Dome, and we are expanding its deployment. And we appreciate very much the support of the United States in this matter, and that is in addition to the development of David Sling and the Arrow system for multi-level defense. As far as passive defense, we have deployed throughout the country, and we're preparing a warning system that will go directly to the cell phone of every citizen in the country. There was today an exercise in Netanyahu on this matter, and this will be able to warn of approaching missiles, and will be able to focus in exactly the threatened piece of territory. And now these systems, the passive ones and active ones, not only do they improve defense, they improve our attack capability and deterrence because they increase the maneuverability and attack capabilities. We are not provoked by every attack. We have more time, and we are able to deliberate judiciously, to choose properly. And what the separation fence did to the suicide terrorists, the defense systems can do to the missile threat. But I would like to make it clear, and this is something I say at every opportunity, and I will say it today too, it is not enough to have defense power. We also need the ability to attack and deter the enemy. And the combination of offensive and defensive capabilities can prevent war or shorten a war. And this is also true for the third area, the cyber threat, which affects the other two areas as well, and certainly is combined with the nuclear area and the missile area in different ways. The cyber area that we are developing increases the defensibility of the state ability in the area of cyber, the size of the state doesn't have much significance, but its scientific capability is very significant, and Israel is blessed in that area. And I'd like to say that we are investing a great deal of money in that, human capital and financial capital. And I expect these investments to yield a great deal in the coming years. And these are all being, these are all provoked by attack capabilities. And because we are one of the most computerized countries in the world, we are especially exposed to cyber attacks. And in order to improve our ability to defend ourselves, I have established the cyber headquarters, the national cyber headquarters, and like with every important thing, I have set goals that Israel will be among the 5 leading powers in the world in the area of cyber in the world. And I believe that we will indeed maintain this goal. The nuclear, missile, and cyber threats are threats that we are preparing for, but unfortunately there is a 4th well-known old threat. I'm sure it's familiar to the veterans here who have fought in Israel's wars, and that is the stockpiles, the huge stockpiles of weapons in this region. We cannot rule out the possibility that arms that are provided to countries in this region will one day be aimed at us. We cannot rule out the possibility that extremists will take over regimes that today do not represent a threat to us, but that these forces will use those arms that are stockpiled there against us. It's not theoretical. It's already happened. It happened in Iran. And it could happen with the great shock that is shaking our area. It could happen in other places too. And therefore, in order to preserve Israel's qualitative edge, preserving Israel's qualitative edge is a central element in Israel's security doctrine. And this is a subject that we discuss all the time with our great ally and friend, the United States, and we will continue to do so. And so we are contending with these 4 threats, but earlier I said that there is a 5th one also, which can threaten the existence of the state of Israel as a Jewish and democratic state. And that threat is breaking through our borders by illegal work infiltrators. Already early in the term of this government, I started to deal with this problem. We've been talking about it since 2005, 2006. A short time after we left Gaza, we said we have to build a fence. In 2009, there was not a fence yet when this government began, not even the beginning of a fence or even a budget for a fence. And there was no agreement or consensus regarding the need to build a fence. It was said it's not effective, it won't stop them, it's expensive, unnecessary. And when I insisted, they said, okay, we'll build 2 segments. And I took a different view. But they said it's going to cost 2 billion shekels. I said, okay, so then we'll cut back the budget. We will not go into deficit. This is a matter of priority. This is a national priority. Otherwise, we'll be overrun. We will have not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. And we are too small a state. Other countries have lost control of their borders and paid a price that they still cannot fully assess. But we know that we cannot afford this. And so we decided within less than a year after the government was established to build the government. We budgeted and the route from Gaza to Eilat. And this fence will be completed in a few months' time, thanks to some outstanding work. I go down there every few months with my military secretary, Yohanan Locher, and this is already a system that it keeps itself going. My policy about illegal infiltrators is clear. First of all, to stop the infiltrators by means of the fence, and at the same time to remove all of the illegal aliens, illegal infiltrators from Israel. We will start by moving the ones from South Sudan, subject to the authorization of the court, which I hope we will receive in a few days, and then we'll move on to other groups. It's important to understand that that international law makes it very difficult to remove them. It says the following: if you want to return them, the illegal infiltrators, to the countries from where they came, then you have to get permission from the country. If you want to remove them to a third country, then you have to get permission from that country. And in both cases, you have to guarantee that they will not be harmed. In other words, that the country does not have conditions that endanger their lives, that they will not be endangered. We are holding, for that purpose, talks with a number of countries. This is not a one-day proposition, but unlike what I read today, it's not something that doesn't have a solution, that can't be dealt with. It's true that if we had not decided 2 years ago to build the fence, not only would we be dealing today with 60,000 illegal infiltrators, within a short time, a few years, we would have 600,000, 10 times as many. So first of all, we're stopping the flow. But it's true, and even though it's difficult and it's not a one-day solution, we can remove them, and we will. Just as we have resolved other problems, we will resolve this one too, systematically and responsibly, and subject to international agreements. I am aware of the distress of the people of South Tel Aviv, of the people of Eilat. I was there and I spoke to them. Of the people of Arad, of the people of other cities and towns in Israel who are suffering from this problem. But I once again call upon public figures and ordinary citizens to show restraint and responsibility. We are a moral nation, and we will behave accordingly. We rule out violence or inflammatory rhetoric. We respect human rights. Refugees have rights and we respect them. There are also rights of people who don't have a right to be here, but they do have rights, and we respect that too, and we will remove them legally from here. We will not lose human dignity, and we will not deny it to anyone else, but on the other hand, we will not accept a reality in which infiltrators from an entire continent come here en masse to work. We are committed to defend our borders, to defend the future of the state of Israel as a Jewish and democratic state. Ladies and gentlemen, there are those who, when they hear about these threats that I have enumerated, they don't think that we have to devote so much effort to dealing with them. They don't think we need to concentrate so much effort against the Iranian nuclear threat or the cyber threat or the missiles or borders. They believe that if only we sign a peace agreement with the Palestinians, everything will be fine. Everything will work out for itself. I do not share that approach. We were once told if we just solve the problem with Syria, everything will work itself out. You remember that? Syria, which is slaughtering its own citizens so cruelly. Of course, with the help of Iran and Hezbollah. Real help, not political support. Help in the murder of their citizens. I do not share that approach. We share the acceptance of the need to deal with the threats and at the same time to try to advance the peace process with the Palestinians. We are striving for peace with our Palestinian neighbors at the same time that we are preventing the other threats. There's no contradiction between these threats. On the contrary, they complement one another. The American historian and also gifted writer Will Durant expressed my view regarding the securing of our existence. This is what he wrote in 1968, towards the end of his days, in a small book of 100 pages, which he called The Lessons of History. And I quote, "There are faiths and religions that promise their followers that those with a good heart will be victorious in the end. But history does not promise that outcome. Nature and history do not agree with our approach to good and evil. They define good as that which survives and evil as that which fades and disappears. In the unsatisfying situation of international law and the existing approaches in the international community," and he wrote this in 1968, "the unsatisfying situation of international law and the prevailing approaches in the international community, a nation must at all times be willing to defend itself. And when its crucial interests are involved, it may use whatever is necessary to assure its survival." My dear friends, I thank you for the opportunity to present this evening the principles that guide me to assure the existence and future of the State of Israel in security and in peace. Thank you very much.